want to say something about my mama. Your mama dead as Your mama dead as Go dig her up. Go dig her up.
T.I.'s 21-year-old son went on Instagram Live and said something that made the entire internet go silent. He told 50 Cent to post his own mother's photo. Then he said, "Except you can't, because she's not here anymore. We'll get there." But before we do, you need to understand the one rule that made those words land the way they did.
But man, when you start talking about people's deceased parents, you crossing a line that's hard to come back.
Hip-hop has always had a line, not written down anywhere, not enforced by any label or any lawyer, but understood. The way you understand gravity, not because somebody explained it, but because you've seen what happens when somebody forgets it's there. You can come for a man's catalog, his sales numbers, his hairline, his ghostwriters. All of that is the game.
First off, you gotta understand where King coming from. That's his mama, man. You can't be out here playing with a man mama and think it's just gonna be rappers rapping.
But there is one thing that has remained off the table in every beef this culture has ever produced. You do not bring a man's family into it, not his wife, not his kids, and not, under any circumstances, his mother. That rule exists because everyone in this culture knows something. The music is business, the trolling is business, the memes, the subliminals, the clout, all business. But a man's mother was there before any of it, before the deal, before the chain, before the name. And when you bring her in, you are not in a rap beef anymore. You are in something that does not end with a handshake. On February 22nd, 2026, that line got crossed. And then it got crossed again. 50 Cent went to his phone and posted T.I.'s wife, not T.I., his wife, to his 30 million followers. Deliberate, calculated, and way outside the line. King Harris saw that post. He did not wait for his father. He went live. And what he said next is the reason this story is still sitting in the air like smoke.
That's some heavy, dark shit to be saying. Telling a to go put flowers on a grave.
But we're not going there yet. Before I take you to that live stream, you need to understand how we got here, because this didn't start on February 22nd. This started 6 years ago, with a birthday, a challenge, and a man who refused to answer it, and everything that exploded in February. It was always going to end exactly like this. To understand why a photo of Tiny Harris was the match that lit everything on fire, you have to understand what T.I. had been carrying for 6 years before that photo ever got posted. This is not a story about one bad day. This is a story about a man who spent half a decade trying to settle something the right way. Through music, through the culture, through the arena. This whole thing was supposed to be decided in, and kept getting the same answer. Nothing. A meme, a Crime Stoppers clip. A caption that said, "Keep my name out your mouth and no verses." It started on July 6, 2020, 50 Cent's 45th birthday. I posted a 3-minute Instagram video on the man's own birthday, not to celebrate him, to pressure him. The challenge was a versus, 20 songs versus 20 songs, catalog against catalog, a TL against New York. T.I. was direct about it. Pull your ass up with 20 of your records, man. Now think about what that moment actually was. Versus had just launched during the pandemic. It was the biggest thing in the culture. A platform built specifically to celebrate legacy, to let the music speak without a fight. I wasn't trying to embarrass 50. He was trying to stand in a room with him and let their work decide it. That's the offer. That's the honorable version of this. 50 Cent's response told you everything you needed to know about how the next 6 years were going to go. He did not accept. He did not decline cleanly. He went to Instagram and posted old Crime Stoppers footage, court clips, T.I. testifying in a 2008 murder case, captioned it, "No verses, stay away challenge." In one move, 50 pivoted the entire conversation from music to the streets, from who has the better catalog to who has the cleaner record, and he did it without ever having to pick up a pen. That's the playbook, and T.I. did not fully respect how dangerous it was. A year later, September 23rd, 2021, 50 Cent threw a star-studded world premiere for his BMF series, Black Mafia Family, at the Solaris Amphitheater in Atlanta, T.I.'s city. 50 chose that location. Whether that was business or a statement, T.I. writ it as both. So Tip showed up. He was already booked as a surprise performer that night, and when he got to the microphone, he used it. Standing in 50 Cent's own event in front of 50's invited guests, T.I. grabbed the mic and said it again, live to his face. "Hey 50, we gotta do this versus, man. Give them what the people wanna see, man." The crowd was with him. The energy was there. It was T.I.'s city. 50 Cent said nothing, didn't acknowledge it, didn't engage, just let it sit there and die in the air like T.I. was talking to himself. And that silence, that deliberate, calculated silence, was louder than anything 50 could have said back. Here's the thing about 50 Cent that this story requires you to hold on to, even as his actions get harder to defend. This man lost his mother when he was 8 years old. Sabrina Jackson died in a house fire in South Jamaica, Queens. And Curtis Jackson, the boy who would become one of the most powerful figures in this industry, was left to figure out the world without the only parent he had. That loss did not make 50 soft. It made him sealed, armored. Someone who learned early that people you love can disappear, so you don't let people close enough to do the disappearing. Everything 50 built, the empire, the trolling, the refusal to engage on anyone else's terms, has that fire burning somewhere underneath it. His peers knew this. For 20 years, that wound was respected, left alone. That matters, because what came next was the thing that changed what kind of story this is. By February 2026, the trolling had continued in the background for years, intermittent, 50 posting, T.I. responding, neither one actually doing what needed to be done. And then I sat down on Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco Johnson's Nightcap podcast, the same platform, the same public stage, and said out loud what he had been carrying for 6 years, that he had lost all respect for 50 Cent, that the Versus ducking wasn't business strategy, it was disrespect, and he was done pretending otherwise. 50 heard it, and this time, instead of a meme, instead of a court clip, instead of a stay away challenge caption, 50 went to his phone and posted Tiny Harris, not T.I. Tiny, a woman who was not in this fight, a woman who had never been in this fight, posted to 30 million followers with a caption designed to publicly humiliate her. That's not trolling anymore. That's not rap beef. That's a man who ran out of moves and decided the rules didn't apply to him. He was wrong about that, and the proof walked straight to Instagram Live the same afternoon. King Harris did not have a meeting about this. He did not call a lawyer. He did not sit with his father and map out a response. He saw that photo of his mother on 50 Cent's page, and something in him just left, whatever filter exists between feeling something and doing something about it. King's was gone. He went live, February 22nd, 2026, same day as the photo, thousands of people flooding in to watch in real time. He talked about what it means to be raised by Tiny Harris, what it means to come from a household where your mother is the foundation, and somebody just put her face on the internet as a punchline. He was raised by T.I., he was raised different, and he wanted the whole world to know exactly what that meant for anyone who thought the Harris name was content. Then he said the thing that stopped the scroll. He told 50 Cent to post his own mother's photo. Go ahead, put her up, except you can't, because she's not here anymore. That sentence does not come back from. Not in a comment section, not in a podcast, not in a conversation between two adults trying to squash it. Joe Budden called it immediately, the point of no return. Once you weaponize a dead parent, the architecture of resolution collapses. There is no phone call that fixes what comes after those words. King also went for 50's other documented wound. The public, drawn out falling out with his son Marquise. All the money, all the TV deals, all the mogul moves, and you go home to an empty house with no family around you. King put that out in front of thousands of people and let it breathe. That is not bars, that is personal warfare. 2 days later, February 24th, King went to the studio. Because a live can be forgotten, a diss track on every major streaming platform cannot. Made Man dropped. King, in a red hoodie, filmed in a parking garage, delivering bars with the energy of someone who had made a decision and was done second-guessing it. Speaking on my mama, I tell Chaz, ring the alarm. But it was not the lyrics the culture could not stop talking about. It was the video. King wore a black t-shirt with a photograph of 50 Cent's late mother, Sabrina Jackson, printed on it. He lit a blunt and tried to pass it to the photo. The cover art showed a house engulfed in flames. He also posted an NSFW image he claimed was of 50 Cent, hashtagging no AI to signal authenticity. Let's be clear, that hashtag is King's own assertion. In 2026, a hashtag is not verification. A person with every motive to humiliate their target saying, "Trust me, this is real," is not a source. What the post reveals, regardless of what's actually in it, is a 21-year-old with nothing held in reserve, throwing everything he had at a man who has been doing this since before King was old enough to hold a phone. T.I. responded the way an artist responds. He went to the booth. February 26th, Right One dropped. Vicious, pointed, T.I. calling 50 a 5-0 dispatcher, a small man in a big shell. The fire he had not shown in years was fully present. Ion make memes, I make music. That was the thesis. That was 6 years of patience finally finding its target. Same day, Damani, T.Y.'s other son, dropped Ms. Jackson, built on the Outkast sample. But Damani did not come for 50 directly. He spoke to Sabrina Jackson, asked her if she was proud of the man her sacrifice produced, and then the last line landed quiet and cold. The next time you missing mama, I can send you right to her. Where King went nuclear, Damani went surgical. 7 days. That is what it took to go from a podcast appearance to 2 sons of T.I. addressing a dead woman on every streaming platform. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, a man who had nothing to do with how this started decided he had seen enough. When something this serious goes down, everybody has a take. But there are certain voices that carry a different kind of weight. Not because they're louder, but because of what they've lived through to get to the microphone. Boosie Badazz is one of those voices. Before you hear what he said, understand who is saying it. This is not a podcast host chasing clicks. Torrance Hatch did hard time in the Louisiana State Penitentiary. Not county, not federal. Angola. He caught a murder charge. He stared at the possibility of never coming home. When Boosie talks about what crosses the line, he is not offering commentary. He is giving testimony. Now here's where it gets complicated, and this is exactly what makes his verdict land. Boosie does not like T.I. Their relationship fractured publicly in early 2023 when Boosie accused T.I. of cooperating with law enforcement, called him a rat, scrapped their joint album, went on Vlad TV and said it straight. If you cooperate with law enforcement to get yourself out of trouble, that is what the streets call it. He claimed he had paperwork. That claim belongs to Boosie. Sourced to his own public statements, not court records, not independent journalism. T.I. later brought his own documents to Trap City Cafe to dispute it. The tension never fully resolved. What matters is this: the man delivering the verdict on this situation is not T.I.'s friend. He has his own smoke. With T.I. on the most serious allegation the streets can level at someone. And he still condemned 50 Cent for crossing the family line. A neutral referee delivering a balanced take is worth something, but a man who thinks T.I. might be a rat, who has said so publicly, still drawing the line at what 50 did to Tiny and what King did to Sabrina Jackson, that tells you exactly where the line actually is. On February 26, 2026, Boosie delivered his verdict. He acknowledged King's pain first, did not dismiss him, said it plainly: your mama is sacred ground. In the hood, in the suburbs, in any household where people actually love each other. Sacred. He put the blame on 50 first. 50 lit the match, dragged Tiny into a beef that had nothing to do with her. Ran the same playbook he has been running for 20 years. Troll until they react, then use the reaction against them. But then the tone shifted, because Boosie could not co-sign the how. King had gone somewhere that even Boosie, a man who has lived by the code his entire life, thought was too heavy. He repeated King's words back. And even in the retelling, the weight of what was said just hung there. His word for it: heavy. Then he warned King directly, drew a comparison to his own son, Tootie Raw, said he had already told his boy's mama, and his boy's grandmother, the same reckless path leads to the same locked-up outcome. That is not commentary. That is a man who has been behind the wall recognizing a trajectory. Almost immediately, as if to prove his own point, Tootie Raw entered the beef, posted direct threats at King. King, no stop button, no allies, fired back at Boosie himself. Now fighting 2 simultaneous wars with no cover on either side. Boosie told him exactly where this road goes. King got on it anyway. By February 26th, the culture had fully caught up to what was happening. Every platform, every podcast, every comment section was running the same debate. And the takes were not all the same, which is exactly what made this moment worth paying attention to. Because when 5 credible voices all look at the same situation and come back with 5 different verdicts, that tells you something about how complicated the situation actually is. Charlemagne the God was first, and he was not hedging. His position was clean. 50 Cent started this. I was never disrespectful first. He came with a music challenge, a professional proposition, and 50 turned it into a character assassination campaign. Charlemagne understood completely why King reacted the way he did. When somebody puts your mother on the internet for 30 million people to mock, The rule book goes out the window. He wished they could figure it out like grown men, but he was not about to pretend 50 did not throw the first stone. DJ Academics had the scoreboard out and was not apologizing for it. His read, 50 Cent winning this 4-0. T.E.'s fixation on the versus made him look like a man chasing validation from someone who had already decided he was not worth engaging with musically. Every time T.I. pulled up with the challenge, 50 flipped it and made T.I. look desperate. Academics also called King's dead mother comments holy. And he did not mean that as a compliment. He meant it the way the culture uses that word when something is so far beyond the pale that regular language does not cover it. That take pulled heat from T.I.'s fan base in the South, who felt Academics was running with New York bias, maybe, but the mismatch point was real. A 21-year-old going bar for bar with a billionaire mogul who has been dismantling people on the internet since before King was in high school is not a fair fight, and pretending otherwise does not help King. Joe Budden came with the most balanced take and the one that cut deepest. He loved the family flex. Called T.I.'s decision to go to the booth, to respond with music instead of memes, the cheat code to beating 50 Cent. Because the one thing 50 has never had an answer for is a real musical response. The trolling only works when the other person responds emotionally on social media. When somebody actually drops bars, 50 goes quiet. T.I. figured that out. He just figured it out 6 years too late, and his son did not have the patience to wait for the strategy to land. But Budden also raised the flag everybody needed to hear raised. Once deceased family members enter the conversation, reconciliation becomes structurally impossible. That is not an opinion. That is just how this works. The line is gone. You do not rebuild what gets broken when you go there. Angela Yee kept it observational, but she dropped the detail that a lot of people missed. 50 Cent had quietly started removing T.I. related content from his Instagram page after King's reaction, cleaning his page. For a man whose entire brand is built on never backing down, never deleting, never showing weakness, that move read as exactly what it looked like. Backtracking. Yee did not editorialize it too hard. She did not need to. The action spoke. Shannon Sharpe and Chad Ohocinco Johnson found themselves in the middle of this, whether they wanted to be there or not. Their Nightcap podcast hosted T.I. and inadvertently lit the fuse on the February round. 50 saw that interview and went straight to his phone to post Tiny. Sharpe and Johnson watched it escalate on their own show, reacted to the fallout, kept the tone mostly entertaining. But underneath it, the caution was real. This had gone from sport, two rappers trading jabs, the culture watching with popcorn, to something that had Boosie issuing prison warnings and a man's dead mother on a t-shirt in a parking garage music video. That shift happened in 4 days. Nobody, including the people who accidentally started it, was fully prepared for how fast it moved. 5 voices, 5 different verdicts on the same situation. What they agree on is the part worth holding on to. The line got crossed, twice, by 2 different people. And the damage from both crossings is permanent in ways that no podcast, no statement, no cleaned Instagram page can undo. Here's what I actually believe about this situation. 50 Cent broke the first rule. He went after a woman who was not in the fight, deliberately, calculatedly, to 30 million people, because he ran out of moves and decided the rules did not apply to him. That is not trolling. That is not the culture. That is a man who has spent 20 years building a reputation for being untouchable, deciding that someone else's wife is fair game because her husband had the nerve to keep challenging him. There is no framing of that which makes it acceptable. But King Harris broke the second rule, and the second rule is heavier. A dead woman, a mother who died in a house fire when her son was 8 years old. That trauma was respected by this entire industry for 20 years. Not because people were scared of 50, but because even in the nastiest corners of this culture, there has always been a line around the dead. King crossed it, consciously, on a live stream in front of thousands of people, and then put it on a t-shirt, and then pressed it onto a streaming platform for permanent record. I understand why. That is the complicated part. I understand a 21-year-old watching his mother get publicly humiliated and feeling like the only proportionate response is to reach for the one thing that hurts back just as hard. That instinct is human. That instinct is what his father raised him to have, to hold the block, to not let disrespect sit unanswered. But here is the thing about T.I. in this story that does not get said enough. When 50 posted Tiny, T.I. went to the studio. Not to the live, not to the comments, to the booth. He made music. He took the one weapon 50 has never been able to defend against and aimed it. That was the right move. That was the patient move. That was the move of a man who has been in this industry long enough to know that the culture remembers the person who kept their composure. The real damage in this story lives. Not the real damage in this story lives. Not in 50's troll post. Not even in King's words. In that gap. In the 6 years of watching his father get played that King was carrying when he picked up that phone, T.I.'s unfinished war became King's inheritance, and King paid for it the way the youngest person in the room always pays. With everything, all at once, no filter, no strategy, no exit. 50 Cent broke the first rule, King Harris broke the second, but the most dangerous person in this entire story is not either of them. It is a 21-year-old who was handed a debt he did not create and tried to settle it in a single afternoon. Go back to the rule, the one this whole story opened with. You do not bring family into it. Not the wife, not the kids, not the mother. Nobody listened. Here is what that looks like when nobody listens. 50 Cent is posting with a cleaned page, quietly removing T.I. content, pivoting to his boxing venture like February never happened. A man whose entire brand is built on never blinking. Blinking. T.I. is still rapping at someone who has refused to stand in a room with him for 6 years and is not about to start now. He finally made the music. The culture heard it. 50 did not care. And King Harris, 21 years old, has a diss track on every streaming platform he can never take back. A dead woman's photo on a t-shirt he cannot unwear. And Boosie's prison warning hanging in the air like smoke that will not clear. Nobody won. Everybody paid, just differently. That is what happens when the rule breaks. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just 3 people in worse positions than they started, and the youngest one carrying the heaviest debt. The rule was never just about respect. It was a warning about cost, about what you hand the next person when you refuse to finish what you started like a man. 50 started it, King finished it, and T.I. is still waiting on a versus that was never coming. The youngest person in the room always pays the highest price, every time.